started. Welcome to Homestead Sharing again. Yeah, we're glad you're here. Glad y'all could come see me.
Oh yeah, I know.
Anyway, let me get out of this one here, and we'll go into the one I'm doing. And to give you a little, I guess it helps if I put the right thing. To give you a little bit of an update, I was going to do 5 herbs at one time, these powerhouse herbs.
Yeah.
When I started researching this, I had to cut tons of stuff out of the oregano. It's like, okay, these are more in-depth than I thought they were going to be, but that's okay. It's good because it'll bring us up so much information on them and stuff. So we're going to be talking about powerhouse herbs. And the reason I'm classifying these things as powerhouse herbs is that they all have, there's something we can grow readily here, all right, with a little bit of help and a little bit doing it right. And they also have, remember we talked about our 375 footprint type of changing our paradigm to be more like true foods. These fall really well into those categories. They hit all of the 5, or at least most of the 5 areas of our health maintenance and stuff. Plus, they're good. They taste good, and then they have a lot of in oregano's case, they have a lot of research that's been done on them. So they're finding all of these amazing things that have gone on with these things, and it's just stuff that grow in our yard. We already know, and we'll kind of talk about it in this, but that oregano is something you can feed to your chickens to help out. And we're going to find out that there's a lot of things you can do with that. So anyway, oregano. Now, we're going to be talking, the common name of this, and this is just who is Mr. Oregano. It says common name is oregano, scientific name is that, all right. Recommended variety is the Greek oregano. All right, and the oregano that is Greek has more of the phenols and more of the compounds that are really good for you. Has a little bit stronger Italian pizza flavor than your regular, like other types of oregano. It's a perennial, and it grows really good in USDA 5 through 10. So that's right smack in our areas. Depending on which chart, USDA chart you look at, we're either in 8 or 9 here. They can't really make up their mind. I guess it's some years when it's hotter, we're in 9, and some years when it's cooler, we're in 8. So, but that means we fall well within that. So, all right. And of course, oregano in the 375 footprint. We want to look at our 3 main things for it: the producing, the processing, and the preparing. And a lot of those it is dependent on what you use. And of course, we saw that last month when we looked at the 375 footprint and the True Food Paradigm, that these 3 things matter a lot. So, producing. We're going to look at the type of soil, where to plant it, when and how to plant it, how to grow it, when and how to harvest it, and then how to propagate it, because there is some interesting things on the propagation of this that we'll get into when we get there. So the soil. Basically, we need to try and keep our pH somewhere in the range of 6.5 to 8.0. 8.0 is pretty high on the alkaline scale, and so it does have a tendency to do a little bit better in a more acidic thing. You could probably fudge 6.0 without any problem, because it will grow with tomatoes, which really like acidic soil. So, but the soil needs to be well drained. Oregano it likes water, but it does not like to have its feet stay wet, kind of like blueberries do, So you want moderate fertility in the soil, and this is where it kind of deviates from something like your plants that are producing a lot of fruit. They like a lot of fertility in the soil. In other words, they like a lot of organic matter in the soil and things like that. You don't really need all of that, because the oregano really can handle a little bit more weaker soil, I guess, when it comes to the fertility of it. It does like a good mineral balance. And you remember that we talked about using the C90 application. So if you do that biannually, twice a year, you'll be fine. Just follow the instructions on that. Any of the other ones that are good, soil. I just happen to know that one is clean and is made from more natural substances. You want to avoid excess nitrogen, so you don't want to fertilize them with a high nitrogen fertilizer. You want to basically try to get something that has it more on the low nitrogen side. I know Azure Standards makes a chicken manure fertilizer. It's like a 444. That would be ideal, So All right, and you want a diverse biology compost. So, you know, we were talking about the compost we got at the Mennonites thing. That would be a good compost to put in there because it is a diverse biology. Actually, it's been run through. A lot of that comes from the mushroom farms that, you know, so you know it had a lot of mycelium in it, and it's decomposing. Still probably has spores for that. In fact, actually, we've used it and had toadstools popping up, you know, so it can happen. So anyway, but you want a good diverse biology. So if you're composting your own, that's probably pretty good because you're going to have local diverse biology up in that compost. Location for oregano. Ideal is 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, so pretty much full sun. It likes full sun in Louisiana. Morning sun, of course, is better than afternoon, especially in Louisiana because our afternoon sun, we're apparently closer to the sun in the afternoon than we are in the morning because it sure gets a lot hotter. And the area should also be well drained or a raised bed. Now, we're going to kind of talk about the raised beds and a good way to do it, and I'm going to share with y'all. I know y'all mess with raised beds too, so I'm going to share with y'all and y'all let me know what y'all think about it and what your ideas on some of that in a minute. Afternoon partial shade is best because of our heat. So that's the location. Find pretty much a sunny spot that can be well drained, or you can put a raised bed in. Raised bed. When you're doing it, you want about 50 to 60% of the native soil. You want to mix in 20 to 30% of compost or aged organic matter. Be careful with manures because they end up having a lot of nitrogen and it can burn, especially, well, we all know about chicken manure. You got to age it 6 months before you can use it, you know, so because it'll burn your plants to no end. Rabbit pellets would be good, you know, so. And then 20 to 30% drainage material, such as coarse sand, perlite, or pine bark, pine, or something like that, you know. You could probably even take, if you got a chipper or something, run something till you got some fine, more or less wood chips and mix in there, and that way they would also decompose and help. So you want to raise the bed up about 6 to 8 inches above grade, primarily so that you have good drainage on it, which can mean in the hot summer that you're going to have to, you know, have extra water. You'll have to extra water, but you don't want it to drown, like we just had with all this last thing with, you know, my whole garden just about drowned to death. So then you want to till down into the 2 to 4 inches of the soil. The reason why is oregano has some good root systems to go down, and it actually likes to go down and get the minerals out of, not quite as much as like comfrey or asparagus or something that has the big tap roots, but it does have a good root system and likes to go down to get some good minerals and stuff out of it. So kind of till if it has a hard pan, it doesn't like it, so you kind of want to get rid of the hard pan on it. So when to plant, the best time for transplants is in September or October. We would normally think that the spring would be the best time, but apparently it likes to get a good establishment of its roots during the winter time so that it can then grow really vigorously in the springtime. But if you're starting seeds, you start them in the shaded area where they're relatively cool. You could probably start them inside. And July to August, which I plan on doing. But direct seeding is not recommended. The seeds are extremely fine, and the first rainstorm comes and they're no longer in there. So you got to pretty much get the little plants started to start it. Now we're going to talk about getting the seeds in a minute when we go to harvesting, and I'll talk a little bit about those seeds in a second. But plant maintenance. Oregano needs air so that weed pressure because weed pressure is an issue. So you kind of want to have it open up so that you can actually get in there and weed it, because weed pressure is they don't have many insects that bother it, but they do have, it doesn't like weeds. It likes its own space, okay? As it grows slightly, trim the ends to encourage bushes. If it wants to be kind of tall and spindly, kind of just snip it off and it'll encourage it to bush. And you have to cover it in a hard freeze because we do get cold enough down here that our once a 5-year snows can, once a 10-year snow can hurt it, so you would cover it. After winter, you cut back any damaged foliage. Pest pressure is moderate at best, so it's not a big worry on it. In fact, actually, it's one of the companion plants you would plant with things that you want to get rid of pests because it kind of drives some of them away. Harvesting. When buds form just before flowering, that's about the best time to harvest, when they start seeing the little buds. And you cut back about a third of the plant back for harvest. This allows ample energy from the existing leaves for it to reduce. Pretty much the way you do anything like basil or any of that, this would also be the way to do it. This allows ample energy for regrowth. During winter, keep your harvest to a minimum because it's not going to be replacing its foliage much, if at all, during wintertime. Propagation. All right, here as we get into it. The best way to propagate is from root cuttings. So you want to basically take a cutting and root it, all right? And you find a good plant with the qualities you want and propagate it from that plant. You cut a little bit off and do it. And seeds may not grow, and here's the primary reason. Seeds may not go true from the parent due to genetic drift. What happens is you can get a whole bunch of seeds off of a really good plant, but even if it self-pollinates, which it kind of likes its boyfriend, so it can get any boyfriend it wants out there, but it'll pollinate itself too. So you could get a mixture from different plants that you have, some stronger, some not. But even if it's own pollinating, because of its genetics are not really strong and having dominant genetics, they're really diversified in it, it will not mimic the parent plant. Now, if you are basically taking a cutting, you're cloning the plant, so it will have the exact same qualities of that plant. So if you're going to start, like what I'm thinking about doing is starting a bunch of seeds, grow them up, and when they start getting about ready for me that I would transplant, I'm going to taste and test and whatever, find the ones I want, plant those, and throw the other ones away. That way, when I go to let them grow and continue growing, then I will propagate those instead of seeds. I will propagate them from themselves, from the best plant out of the bunch. So it may take me actually 2 years to get a really good, batch of, or I guess you call it a bed of them, because I will always weed out the lesser of the ones. So anyway, so that's the main thing about the seed propagation is because of that. Is that and you definitely don't want, like I said, the seeds are so small, you definitely do not want to try and direct sow them into the ground. Okay, processing. Well, you can use it, and really I should have put fresh up top, but you can do frozen, dried, you can make a tincture out of it, you can make a vinegar or even water extract out of it.
Can you freeze dry?
And the best way, well, let's look at them, okay? It needs to be frozen quickly after harvest because the leaves will start to wilt almost immediately. Leaves should be dry. Shelf life is a few months in the freezer. The structure is disrupted. The cells explode, so when it's frozen. All right, air dry. This is another way you can do it for drying them. You can hang the cut leaves and stems in a bag in a cool, dry area, and then when it dries out, you crumble the leaves up and you can store them. You can also do them with a dehydrator. You pull all the leaves off, put them in the dehydrator and dehydrate, and then crumble. Freeze dried. This is actually the most effective way to keep the potency of the herb. Freeze drying the leaves, then keep either whole or crumbled sealed with O2 and moisture absorbers. Primary reason why, and we've talked about this with freeze drying, y'all are freeze dryers, y'all know enough about it, that you keep about 98% of the quality when you freeze dry. Now, you will have the same cellular disruption that you have in freezing them because it expands the cell when the water freezes in it, but then that water is removed out. And so you have that, even though that cellular structure is thing, because it's dried, you don't notice it as much, okay? It will not reconstitute back to a fresh leaf, so you will not get that. Now, sun-dried, that is actually not recommended as much of the potency is lost, meaning sitting out in the cooking sun. And this is why if you use a dehydrator, use it on a low setting, a low heat setting, because it can also drive some of those oils off, because some of them are volatile, and they will drive off. But if you keep it below, I don't know, I'd keep it around no higher than 125 if you do it that way. It takes longer, but like if you are doing your dehydrator.
95, it takes forever.
Yeah, and you can, like the, what is it, there's one of the candies or something, no, candies you do at a higher temperature on those, so But yeah, it can take a lot longer because it takes longer to get the water out. So anyway, so sun dried not recommended because and as you're going to learn, sunlight has effects on things. And when Suzanne comes and gives her presentation, but sunlight can actually deteriorate the quality of the herb. It'll still work, it'll still taste good, but it's not as potent as it was before. Tincture and vinegar extracts use either fresh or dried leaves in a food-safe alcohol, so no wood alcohol. Let it sit for several weeks or to months, then strain the solids out. Use vinegar instead of alcohol in the same process. You need not remove the solids if it is to be used directly on foods, such as in a dressing or et cetera, et cetera. You can, and the Italians do this, they will put sprigs of oregano in olive oil and it will release the flavor. However, you need to use the olive oil fairly quickly. It does not have a long shelf life. Just like it doesn't, in other words, it doesn't extend the shelf life of the olive oil. If you use it like you would normally use that olive oil. So, but you cannot figure on, like with a tincture, you can have, this is, after you've made an alcohol tincture, as long as it didn't open it to allow it to evaporate, we're talking years, maybe decades it'll stay good, but if you're doing it in, say, in oils, you're going to lose potency fairly quick. It will not be shelf stable past the normal time that the oil will be stable. Fresh, and of course you can always pick it a leaf or two and just chop it up and chunk it in. Wintertime you might want to back off on that, but in the summertime, hey, go for it. All right, preparing the oregano. All right, so how can we use oregano? Well, we got culinary, which most people are familiar with that. We have medicinal, and then we have livestock supplements. So let's look at those. Culinary. The limit in this is your imagination. Cook it in a dish for a Mediterranean flair, sprinkling on after the meal. It's cooked to add a special taste to it. Steep it in a tea mixture or even in a specialty drink and add some pizzazz to a drink. It might be not the pizzazz you want, but you can see, Anyway, so that's it. So culinarily, you can use it however you want. Whatever you think to taste good, if it tastes good to you, go for it. Medicinal. This is where it starts to get interesting for oregano. It's antimicrobial, antifungal, antiparasitic, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It actually has effects on mental and emotional states, not just perceived, but actual physical effects on them. And it has positive effects on the gut health, and especially the gut barrier. So there's a few, and this is the one here, the mental and emotional. When I started reading all that was the one that I thought was probably the most interesting because it was something I never really heard of, And a lot of times they'll tell you, hear these things, oh, well, you need to have an essential oil. It just relaxes and calms you. Okay, that probably does, but is that more of a psychological, it just is nice or it relaxes me, or is it having an actual true physical effect? Well, there was a study in the British Journal of Nutrition found evidence that oregano extract affected these systems, the monoamine neurotransmitter system, serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. Okay, noradrenaline. There you go, noradrenaline. And which are all tied to mood, anxiety, attention, sleep, and cognition. This is really kind of interesting, these studies here. In 2018, oregano essential oil in rats with, I think, it says caused ultra sensitivity or something like that. Basically, it's anxiety. They took and made the cats, so you could probably put a cat in there to make the mice get really anxious and anxiety, and then they gave them some oregano essential oils, and the cats went mellow. All right, or not the cats, the mice, man. The effects on the essential oil in the brain, the TL4 and the TLR2 gene expression and depressive-like behavior in a rat model. What they found out was there was a depression because of that caused anxiety. The rats developed all these depression hormones and things there in the body. When they used the oregano essential oil, it got rid of them. It actually countered that. It removed that anxiety. It removed that depression from it. Then we had an Oregano vulgate, which is the Greek oregano. Extract causes rat study. This is another behavioral molecular rat study where it ameliorated. That means it made it better. Okay, not better at being bad, but better at being good. I had to look up what that word meant. And it says, well, why don't you say make it be better? Well, reason why is, well, if it was good at being bad and you made it better, that means you made it better at being bad. It's like, oh, okay. So this, yeah, that's overthinking it, but apparently they want to be precise. But any anxiety-like behavior and cognitive dysfunction in a rat model of chronic unpredictable stress, that's what this CUS stands for, and treated with organic extract. And what they found was that it actually made it good or better, okay? Made the mice have less stress, less anxiety, less depression. Their actual cognitive ability went up, which that was something that was kind of they didn't expect. Then they did another one in 2024 Carvacol mouse CUM study, which I don't know what CUMs is. It comes as induced depressive-like behavior, okay? And a cognitive impairment by reducing the oxidative stress and the neuroinflammation in mice. So basically by reducing, because it's anti-inflammatory, it was actually going in there to be able to reduce these depression-type tendencies in the mice because it reduced the inflammation and reduced a lot of the oxidative stress. So there was one of them, it didn't actually point it out in there, but I read about, they took, and it was a pretty small sampling, it was 40 men, and they gave them a proprietary Greek oregano extract, and they actually studied these men, and their cognitive and intuitive abilities increased across the board. They had a placebo group and a test group, and the test group began to, as they did it, began to outperform the cognitive, the placebo group. And so that showed that there was an actual true effect on them. But it was only 20 in each group, so it was considered a limited thing. It was done in England, and it was with men only. And of course, that started a lot of these rat studies when they did that. So but they wouldn't give up what the proprietary was. They couldn't really cite it as a good thing because they said apparently they were going to try and make money off it, but didn't. But anyway, so here's the major active compounds that we have, and I'm not going to read through all of them, but there's some of these that we'll notice that we'll see in other spices that we'll take a look at down the road, and in this, these really steroid spices, and so we're going to look at it, that a lot of these too, and of course, a lot of these things hit Dr. Lee's 5x5x5, they intersect with them, at least 3 major ones. And then there's 2 of them that do have, that kind of touch into it. The immunity, carvacol, thymol, rosmetic acid, and flavonoids, they all help our immunity system. The microbiome is also carvacol, thymol. The picymine, the V-terpenine are all phenols and compounds that really push this. And the DNA protection is romeric acid, caffeinated chlorogenic acid, flavonoids, and carvacol. They are anti-stress, they are antioxidant, so they're going to help with the DNA protection. They'll actually promote the enzymes that go in and repair our DNA. So taking this actually can help your DNA be done. It also some of them touch on angiogenesis, which we looked at one point, is the regulation of blood vessel growth, either holding it back or adding it in, and then regeneration and brain resilience. These act on this. So we can see that they hit our 5x5x5, which is a key component in the 375 footprint. And then livestock supplement, we talked about that there's something, and most of the same benefits that we find in people can be found in livestock too. We found that the antioxidants, the anything, the stress relief that they're finding out now with rats, some of that CUS stress in really hot weather or really adverse conditions can affect our animals, whereas just including a little bit of oregano in their feed. Now I know I'll sprinkle oregano in my chicken feed. They'll peck around it. They don't really like to eat straight oregano, but those phenols and stuff and the aromas are getting into the feed, so they are getting some of it, even if they don't eat the direct feed. And this is just an observation, but I've noticed that organic medicated chicken starter feed smells like it's really strongly oregano. It has a real strong oregano flavor to it. And I don't know if it's just because it has some of the same compounds added to it, or if they're adding oregano essential oil to it. And it could be, but I've noticed, I forgot whose Durafon or something like that is the name of the medicated one. I opened it up and it was like, whew, that smells like oregano. I mean, like strong. So, but anyway, so it kind of tells me that that's what they're using, especially the organic ones. All right, so the oregano is one of several powerhouse herbs. So, and hopefully we're going to take a look at some of these other ones. Rosemary, tulsi, which is what some people call holy basil. I'm not sure why it's holy. All right, tulsi, and then we have ginger and turmeric. And these are all things. Two of the other ones are perennial, and two of them are, I think, annuals. And you just have to kind of take the ginger. No, actually, three of these are perennials. Rosemary, ginger, and turmeric with the tulsi, the basil, is an annual. But if you keep it warm enough, it'll keep growing all along. You know, if you don't let it freeze back. So, anyway.